And appreciate everybody showing up today. I know everybody's busy, so we always appreciate the time that you guys give us for these. And excited about this topic. I'm going to do probably more just as of a setup. I know everybody kind of wants to see the demo, and we're excited as well. We try to keep these things interested. So if anybody attended our last one, they saw we did a mock interview on how do you choose the right visualization and had that conversation. We're going to do something very similar, as Dinesh mentioned, as well from a conversation you would have about data, but we're going to try to keep these things kind of short so we can get on to the demo, which I know everybody wants to see these things in action. But we want to set the stage first before we jump into this. I want to be able to help understand why this is important. I know everybody these days hears about data quality issues and making sure your data is ready, but our first thing we want to start off with before we jump into what we're doing there is why is data prep important? And the first thing that comes to my mind is user accessibility. I mean, if we give a raw database to someone, the ability for them to do something with it, unless they're someone who's a data steward with that data, or somebody who's very familiar with it, if it's just a business users, which more and more that's who's actually using the data, it's very difficult for them to do anything with it. So there has to be some enrichment. There has to be a lot of times some sanitization with the data, blending data from different data sources. And where and how that happens is very important to make sure that they're having access to data they can deal with. They have to be able to trust the data, make sure that what they are working with is accurate, and anything they put out there from an analytics standpoint or any application is trustworthy. Make sure it's governed, so different people within the organization aren't having different versions of the truth of one piece of data. And there's a lot more that goes into our conversation that we won't go into today, but governance is definitely a big piece of making sure that your data prep is done. These days, being able to augment the data, injecting AI and ML and different models into the data that you have to give you not just a view of what's happened, but predicting what's going to happen with it, and even prescribing things that may happen or steps that you can take with that data moving forward. So that these days is becoming more and more prevalent, and the use cases and the value from that's coming are becoming much more real life than just things that were kind of science fiction in the past. And again, the main thing is your data has to tell the right story. In the past, we talked about, choosing the right visualizations, creating dashboards that were designed properly. But if the data in the actual dashboard, no matter how well it looks, no matter how much how good of a job you did picking the right visualization, if the data is not correct, you're not going to tell the right story. And then, of course, bad data is just expensive, and we'll talk about very quickly some examples of that. And why that is. And as you can see here, Gartner has their numbers out, and the average cost of poor data quality for an individual business can range from 9.7 to 4.2 million. And that varies obviously wildly from company to company, and that's just an average number. But again, you can see it's a very significant figure. For the U.S. economy, roughly $3.1 trillion. So just to throw out some numbers, these numbers are all over the place, as you can see if you get out there and look at this stuff, but it obviously is something that can be very, very expensive. One example, again, April Fool's Day for them, NASA had a $125 million hit to their Mars orbiter just because of bad data that was in their system. Obviously very expensive for them. Look bad at them from an image. These guys are known to be very, very sharp people, and to see that this can happen to anybody makes us all feel better, I think. But again, it just tells you the effects of it. Worst financial crisis in history caused by bad data, mortgage-backed securities, centralized debt applications, the subprime market. All those things happen because of bad data in the system. And then there's been some more recent ones lately that we won't go into for sake of time, that are strictly bad data with inside of these investment portfolio back systems that are causing bad decisions from the data's perspective, and even just wrong data. What we want to do is kind of break down, and when we look at this with when we're kind of going through the process of developing out a plan for building out an analytics application, we want to look at what are the actual dimensions of good data. We've talked about having bad data and the preparation that goes into to make it good. What are the dimensions that go into that? First thing that comes to my mind is availability, and then usability, reliability, relevance, and then of course presentation readiness. And I'll walk through each one of these very, very briefly, just to kind of give you what we're thinking on each one. From availability standpoint, just again, the ability to be able to access the data you want to access. How timely is the data that you're getting? If you're needing to do real-time reporting off of something, are you getting the data in real time, or is it a week or a month old? or even a day old is too old for some people. And some people it's fine. So you have to understand, can I get to the data? How timely is it? And do I have the access I need to that data? So availability obviously is the first step there. Usability. Understanding the data is key to it. If you have data but you don't understand what the data is telling you or what it's about or how it got there, that can be a big issue. Having a clear definition of it, being able to have some type of documentation about the data to understand what this data actually means, the credibility of where the data come from. So many times we talk with people about data they're wanting to use and they're asking, that's our first question, where this data even come from? So we have to understand a lot about the data, the metadata, and how it's split out before we can even start using the data. Reliability of it, again, these are just key things that you'll look at, and these typically lend more towards like a data quality type of exercise, but the accuracy of it, the integrity of it, the completeness of the data, is it audible? Can I go back and see where it came from? Is it consistent? So a lot of things from a reliability standpoint are going to come in when we're looking at, is this good data or not? What type of preparation do we have to do to get it into that state? Relevance, is it relevant towards what we're doing? I mean, you can have the best data in the world, but if it's not relevant towards what you're trying to do, it's not going to help you out. Does it solve some type of problem for you? Does it provide some type of insight to what you're trying to show in your application? And does it relate to people on their daily jobs? In most cases, the applications we're putting out there, you want to have some type of impact, whether they see my sales numbers are going down for some reason or another, or there's some type of alerting or whatever it is. It has to be able to relate to things that I need to be able to use it on a daily basis. And of course, presentation. There's lots of issues that come up from presentation. We've seen a number of things, even things as international companies having different versions of currency that are displayed as one type of currency. So how you present that, dates presented in the wrong format. There's lots of things from being able to read the data in the proper way, it's structured in the right way, and then it's applicable, and that's where the kind of local standardization, if you have global applications, that it's actually going to be presented in a way that makes sense to the people who are using it. So all those things go into it, and there's a lot of things that you'll see here when AJ gets into the data preparation part of his demo, that he'll show you how do you actually go through these different dimensions and create things that will actually show you how do I create something that's more readable to my user or standardized locally to them.